Should we go live, Chair?
Go live.
We should fight with then. We live, Chair?
Right, good morning and welcome to the formal scrutiny people. This morning we're here to look at the Estate Inspection Outcomes, the annual report. We have with us the Cabinet Member for Education and the respective officers. Before we move on, I'm Councillor William J. Redley. I'm the Chairman of the Scrutiny panel here, or committee here this morning. This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021. We will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. The Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times during this virtual meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. I remind members that this meeting is being live streamed and the public. Please can those attending switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to ensure that there's no necessary or unnecessary background noise. Can I also remind members to ensure that the chat function is switched on and to use this facility to indicate to me if they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so. And remember to unmute your microphone and switch on your camera. A recording version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes within the council. Thank you. I don't know why we've got to keep doing that, but thank you. Okay, we go to any apologies for absence.
Yes, Councillor Bright sent us apologies, Chair.
Thank you. No further apologies. Declarations of interest too. And if you have any during the meeting, you can always raise them. Number 3, minutes of the previous meeting. We go from page 3 to 12. Instead of going through the pages individually on this, I guess we've all ready. Can anybody move this first?
Yes, I'll move it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Are there any questions?
Yes, I was going to raise something on page between 8 and 9 about the youth service.
Okay.
We had a breakdown of the nights they were running youth clubs and whatever. I would like to know how much face-to-face the youth workers actually do and how much admin they actually do.
Okay, thank you. Well, obviously the officers
If we can have that breakdown,
not here.
lovely.
Sam, would you take it along?
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other observations? There are no other indications, so thank you very much indeed. We move on to item 4, which is the Estate Inspection Outcomes Report. Does anybody want to speak to this before we go into the report? Cabinet Member, sorry.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm especially pleased to be with you and helping to present a report on our schools that were recently inspected by SD. I'm really proud of our schools, as this report shows that we currently have no schools with special measures or require review. As the report states, currently Newport is only one of 2 local authorities who are not in special measures in the whole of Wales. In addition, 70% of our schools have been asked to provide a best practice case study. Comparatively in the region, the figure is 58% and the national figure was 27%. I think that speaks brilliantly in regards to how our schools are performing. I believe this truly reflects the collaborative and supporting approach we take with our schools. The approach our officers take, and these are officers, is what really makes that difference. It's their approachability while having key expectations with regards to standards, and this has been so important and seeing progress being made. Our officers know our schools, they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they work with them to continue on that road of improvement. This is also about recognising the levels of deprivation and poverty that we currently see within our schools and the focus on ensuring positive outcomes for all our children, irrespective of their background. So thank you this morning for being here, and I hope you really appreciate and enjoy reading such a positive report in regards to our schools. And I'll hand over.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to pass on to Sarah Davis, our Deputy Chief Information Officer, whose portfolio is responsible for improvements to go through the report. That's okay with you.
That's fine. We're going to start the report, Sarah. Go straight into it on page 19.
So the report covers schools and people referral units in the City of Newport that have been inspected by Eston as part of their core inspection or follow-up activity in the academic year 2022 to 23. I think it's important to note that since inspections were resumed after COVID, that inspection teams no longer give overall grades for inspection areas. So we were used to seeing grades of adequate, good, outstanding, unsatisfactory, but those have gone as part of the move by Welsh Government to move away from high levels of accountability and to provide the audience for those reports, the context and the sense of where the school is and what the school needs to do to improve. But it does make it a little bit more tricky for all of us to have that general sense of that grade, and we have to dive into the report to understand the school's context and the progress they're making. So when inspections identify any interesting or innovative practice, as the Cabinet member has just noted, that is worthy of sharing more widely, they invite the school to complete a case study, which they showcase on the Eston website. So that is not an indicator of a school's success, or it's not an indicator of a school's not performing well if they don't have a case study, because we're looking for innovative practice and interesting practice, not good practice. So we're looking for something that potentially is not the norm across schools in Wales. So it is a little bit of an arbitrary figure when we talk about the fact that we've done so well in the number of case studies we've been invited to present in our Newport schools, but it's telling us that the work in our schools in Newport is innovative. And I think that is really important because they're always looking they're always looking at research, they're looking at development, they're looking at horizon scanning. They're never content in Newport schools to sit on their laurels and just continue with the norm. So I think that's an indication of the quality of the leadership in our schools in Newport and the quality of our practitioners. When inspectors identify serious shortcomings in one or more of the inspection areas, the school or pupil referral unit will normally require a statutory level of follow-up activity. And there are two statutory categories: significant improvement or special measures. In a few instances where inspectors have seriously considered but then rejected significant improvement and special measures, they may decide that the provision requires monitoring through Eston review. So they're not saying the school requires the statutory category, but they just feel the school might need a little more time to demonstrate that practice is where it needs to be. So there are 5 inspection areas that are listed in the report. So we have learning, and that was the old standards category, but now they're calling it more generically learning. Wellbeing and attitudes to learning. Teaching and learning experiences, which picks up the new curriculum and the breadth of that curriculum. The quality teaching and assessment. Care guidance and support. And for me, one of the most important ones, and a strength of Newport schools, is the quality and effectiveness of leaders and managers. And that is looking at school improvement planning, self-evaluation, how well do they know their schools, how good are they at identifying what needs to be done and then undertaking it, and the emphasis they put on professional learning as part of that. So during all core inspections, the inspection team considers whether school or PRU needs any follow-up. And as I've said, there are 3 follow-up areas: special measures, significant improvement, and Eston review. The difference between special measures and significant improvement the main real difference would be that special measures, if you're in special measures, you are visited on a termly basis by Estyn. So you're expecting termly visits where your recommendations are reviewed. If you're an Estyn, if you're in special measures, you have termly 6 visits. If you're in review, that's improvement, if you're in a significant improvement, that will be after a period of 12 months. Okay, so it's the level of return visits by Estyn to monitor your work. If you're in Estyn review, then it's very much a partnership between Estyn, the school, and the local authority. So what happens then is, I think this is really important, they now come to us as the local authority and ask our views of the progress the school has made against its recommendations. If they are content that the local authority has high levels of confidence that the school has made progress and an evidence base for that judgment, and they also triangulate that with the school's own evidence, they will not make a face-to-face revisit. It will be what they call a desktop review, and the school is removed from that list of review schools. However, if they don't feel that the local authority have that confidence, they will revisit the school. And then a decision will be made either to extend the period of review, remove them from review, or consider a statutory category. So, as Councillor Davis has pointed out, we do not currently in Newport have any schools that are in a statutory category, so that is in Estyn special measures or significant improvement. And we are only one of 2 authorities currently in Wales. So I think that is something to celebrate as a city, and we're very proud of our schools. So in the period 22 to 23, 11 of our schools and settings were inspected. So we had 1 nursery school inspected and 10 primary schools, and the list of those schools are in the report. We also had 2 schools who were in an Estyn statutory category at the beginning of September 2022, and that was Newport High School and Mawrth Church in Wales Primary. I'm delighted to say both those schools were removed from the Estyn statutory category of special measures. We also had Ysgol Gyfun Gwent Isod, which was in Estyn review, and because of the high levels of confidence of the local authority, the EAS, and the evidence provided by the school, they were removed from the list of schools requiring review. So, as Councillor Davis pointed out earlier, Newport's Estyn inspection outcomes are strong and are significantly better than those of local authorities that make up the South East Wales Consortium. We know that regionally there are 58% of our schools were invited to provide a case study that was interesting or innovative, and I've been very careful here, it's not a demonstration of strengths. And nationally, that's a much smaller figure of around 27%, but for Newport, that was 70% of our schools inspected provided a case study of interesting or innovative practice. And I think that's really important. So when we go into the schools, there's a list of schools and there's a summary of the report and where case studies. So for example, Tredegar Park presented a best practice case study in relation to its e-car provision and the development of people's life skills. So they have a context in their school where they set up a home base, so kitchen, bedroom, and the children get an opportunity to develop their life skills in a primary school setting. That is quite unique. We see it in special schools and we see it often in resource bases, but that provision within a primary setting was an innovative practice that got picked up. Jubilee Park also prepared a case study for dissemination, and that was in relation to its work in creating a culture of professional learning and developing an anti-racist curriculum, which again, they hadn't seen that level of work and research around that piece of anti-racism. Another important point to point out about Jubilee Park and to celebrate is that they had 1 recommendation, because every school has to have a recommendation. And that recommendation was to continue its improvement journey because there were no specific recommendations relating to that inspection. And they, at the time, were only 1 or 2 schools in Wales to be in that position. So we can, although we haven't got a grading, that tells us that this is an outstanding school. High Cross School was also inspected, Milton Primary was inspected, Pwyllgor and Lodge Hill was inspected, and again they were invited to write a best practice case study. That was about their intervention for pupils and their planning opportunities for inclusion. So that's on the ALN agenda. So that was really great to see. And we've got some strong evidence of good practice around inclusion and ALN. Then we moved to Mono, and in Mono we had a best practice case study, and this is really good, about the effectiveness of the learning environment in supporting pupils to develop their skills, confidence and independence, and the use of literature to inspire a curriculum. And that showed that strong work they've already done in terms of that new curriculum. I'm delighted to say Mono are now supporting one of our other Newport schools around developing that new curriculum. Newport Nursery, they had best practice case study, and that looked at the specialist base that is based within their Newport Nursery. And it was about the impact of the professional learning on the outcomes for pupils with specific additional needs. So again, demonstrating that strength around ALN provision in our school. Pwyllgor was also inspected, and Pwyllgor was placed on the list of schools requiring ESTIN review. So the school has now drawn up an action plan to show how it's going to address the recommendation, and has also provided ESTIN with a written response to a special safeguarding letter and identified the actions in the plan that it is going to take to address the concerns raised in that hall inspection. ESTIN will review the progress within the next academic year, so probably around the later June, beginning of July. And we are, as a local authority, providing advice and support to the school in partnership with the EAS, and we are monitoring that school's progress and its recommendations through half-termly meetings with the head teacher, deputy head teacher, chair of governors. We've got a very clear action plan that we are working and supporting that school with, in the hope of showing accelerated progress, because in review has been a positive in many of our schools where we've seen really accelerated progress. As Scrutiny is one of those examples of accelerated progress with the right support and holding that school to account as well. So it's getting that balance of support and challenge right with that school to accelerate that improvement. St Mary's Roman Catholic Primary was inspected, and they also presented a case study about creating a culture to encourage staff and leaders to secure effective school improvement. So that is around that leadership of school improvement, self-evaluation to drive improvement. So we've got some really strong practice that we can share across our city to support our schools where those are recommendations. Hentrapoith was inspected and has provided 2 case studies, one on the use of the outdoor environment to apply numeracy, literacy and digital skills learned in class, and also it's approaching raising pupils and parents' awareness and understanding of personal safety. So they had one recommendation, and that was linked to Welsh. St Woolas had a very strong inspection, and then we come on to the schools who came out of statutory categories last year. Marcus Church in Wales went into special measures in November 2019 and came out in 2022. The local authority met with that school and the EAS on a half-termly basis through that period to provide that level of support and challenge. The local authority also, the school was also subject to a local authority statutory warning notice during that period, and the local authority placed additional governors onto that governing body. And a new head teacher was appointed to that school in September 2021. And we're going to see this theme of strong leadership and effective schools. Newport High School was removed from the list of schools requiring special measures in March of 23, having made sufficient progress in relation to its recommendations from its core inspection in November 2017. Newport High School also was subject to a local authority statutory warning notice, so the local authority placed additional governance onto its governing body, and a new head teacher was appointed in April 2020. And as I've mentioned throughout this presentation, Gwent Iscoed was also removed from Eston's list of schools requiring review, went in May 22 and came out in July 23. So you can see that was the minimum amount of time that school could have been in that category, and it came out strongly. And again, that was through that balance of challenge and support provided through our team around the school meetings, and the support provided by the EAS through Learning Next schools, but most importantly, the engagement that the school had with that support, which was outstanding and accelerated that improvement. A school who accepted their recommendations, accepted their support, and created strong partnerships to accelerate improvement. And that's all from the chair.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go through the report now, and obviously members will have questions. And I guess things to say, you know, nothing to fear though, I guess. So, okay, on page 19. Page 20. 21. 22. 3. 4.
Sorry, can I ask on 23?
Yes, by all means.
On Tredegar Park Primary, one of the recommendations was about improvement of Welsh. And I sort of noticed that was a bit of a theme throughout a lot of the schools. I mean, obviously Newport is, you know, a less Welsh speaking area, but I just feel that in the future it's going to be so important for the kids to have that level of Welsh. So I was just wondering if any thoughts kind of being given to that across the board.
Yes.
Absolutely, Councillors. So what we've got is we've talked about the support for schools in addressing their recommendations, but also, of course, you'll know that the councillors set out a 10-year plan, the Welsh and Education Strategic Plan, which is also linked to improving second language Welsh in our English medium schools. And with that comes a support package for schools. So that ranges from new resources which are produced by subject experts, but also our schools as well, because by collaborating with our schools to build those resources, it means we're meeting their needs rather than picking something off the shelf. We've got the opportunity to send teachers on all types of courses to improve their own Welsh speaking, to impact then on learners' ability. And that ranges from an afternoon's course to actually a year's sabbatical, where you can go out and immerse yourself in Welsh. And that sabbatical course has been fully subscribed across the region, but you can do short courses or the longer ones. There's also the ability to have subject advice, where our EAS colleagues that specialise in Welsh second language come into school, observe with the teacher to look at their lesson planning and their lesson delivery, and they're able to come up with pinpointed specific improvements that might help. They can then revisit to look at the progress of learners. So there's a whole raft and range of subject advice in Welsh for our schools, and that's at all levels, both from nursery school right up to GCSE and A-level Welsh provision.
I think what's important to also note here is this is the first round of inspection post-COVID, and we know that Welsh oracy skills and Welsh reading and writing skills obviously were probably more disadvantaged in terms of that distance of blended learning, because our children, as she pointed out, would not have been immersed in Welsh first language homes in the name. So there, we are seeing those things emerging directly after COVID as well. So I think it's important to note that we would hope, with all the support that Sarah's just outlined, that we will see a reduction in recommendations around Welsh language.
Thanks. I think that sabbatical sounds like a really good idea. So, you know, if there's any way we can, you know, support schools to convince some of their, you know, as many of their staff as possible to get on the list, I think that would be a really worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah, the supply issues can be a problem because you've got to be able to backfill your member of staff. But as I said, the take-up is very, very good.
Yeah. And I would say majority of our schools are also doing an award called the Cymraeg Campus, which is graded in bronze, silver and gold. And almost all our schools are involved in that. And that's about creating culture of Welsh, as well as around the skills of speaking, listening, speaking, reading and writing. So all our schools are part of that accredited programme.
Thank you.
Councillor, are you Amy?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah. I was going to raise the same point actually, so I'm glad it's been raised. Because in all the recommendations, it is a running theme, isn't it? The Welsh skills and the Welsh oracy skills or Welsh standards. And in another forum, in another scrutiny, you know, we do get the sort of annual report about Welsh standards and our progress with actually trying to achieve those. I have to say, Newport schools have come a long way, really, with the Welsh medium or Welsh language skills and all that. But it is a running theme in Estyn inspections with several schools, and I wondered whether, Sarah, you think, you know, we as an education authority, we could do a little bit more than we have doing, so that maybe at the next round of inspections, you know, of the same schools, we actually do see a quite a perceptible improvement, really, in that direction.
Okay, so we're always ambitious to improve everything, but I've never been more confident with the opportunities for support with Welsh medium as a second language that is available. The menu of what you can have now to support you is absolutely incredible, but it is a national theme as well. If you look at, you know, so if you went to Denbighshire, you would see the same amount of recommendations for second language Welsh in schools. You might not see it in Anglesey, you know, because there's predominantly first language Welsh, obviously, but we have so much support, but we will, of course, keep trying, and more than that, we'll make sure that we're staying abreast of the engagement levels, because you can offer that menu of support. The schools have got to be engaged in it and receiving it, and we'll continue to monitor that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, page 24 and 25. Okay, I've got a question on Pwyllgor primary. First off, I'd like to say that yes, we have sort of turned a corner here, and that's recognised. And I guess everybody congratulates you for that. But looking at Pwyll, looking at the review there, that's what's got onto this review, and I guess we take that, and I know we all take that seriously. I don't want to probe you on the safeguarding, but one of the recommendations was around healthy eating, the learning. So there's two questions here. One, was this recognised prior to the Estyn review? And how did we react, and what did we do? And secondly, what are we doing now after the Estyn review? So what's the leadership strategy? Is there one message coming out here? Because one of the challenges we face is the multicultural nature of Pwyllgor and getting that single message out that everybody can sort of adhere to in various ways is a challenge in itself and can be a struggle. And how are we doing now? How is our focus going to be on supporting this school and the practices from the other schools that have a high multicultural attendance? If that makes any sense.
The first aspect I'd say is the recommendations. I see no link to the multi-ethnic communities within Pwyllgor. So this isn't linked at all. The children there have the ability to flourish in the same way that they would anywhere. And so I'm confident that that's not part of the issues with the recommendations. The second thing I can tell you is that the inspection report came out in late June, and there is a period of time then that the senior leadership team have the ability to write a new school development plan or post-inspection action plan. I've signed that school development plan off only last week, so I know that it's fit for purpose. Sarah and I did that together at the school. The senior leaders came in with the chair of governors. So that's the first thing. We're in the early days, you know, given the summer holidays as well. But we will see the school every half term, and I'll be monitoring. And the signs we always look for with the school is, number one, they've got the leadership capacity. Are their systems and processes effective in terms of monitoring and evaluation? Is the governing body sound and is holding the school to account as well? And we're looking at the school in depth over time, and actually going to visit the school next week. We're going into school to look at their monitoring and evaluation processes, and we'll be giving further advice and support. The other indicator I look for is a school engaging well, and time will tell. So I'll be able to give updates at various stages to be able to give you that confidence that the school is making good progress. Okay. But at the moment it's early days, and what I can tell you is the support package is absolutely there. And Jane did ask, did we know about these things before? Okay. Now, under normal circumstances, we would be meeting with schools to go over their school development plan, and they'd be talking to us about why did they come up with their priorities. Okay. What monitoring and evaluation happened within their school to tell us that they needed to make improvements in these specific areas. And we're looking for robust monitoring and evaluation of school business. So a good example is if I was looking at learner progress, I would need to be sure that the school was doing book looks to look at the books, that they were looking at planning as well as the books, that we were looking at teaching observations or learning walks, and we were also listening to the voice of children as well. What are their views on lessons in maths, English, and the subjects? And we'd be triangulating our evidence together, we'd be making sure that it was put together to find out what the school's next steps were for improvement. What we also do is we verify that evidence through the EAS visit. So the school improvement partner will go in and say, let's have a look at your monitoring evaluation. Can I see the same evidence base that you've looked at? Or can I do it with you? Let's do it together. And am I drawing the same conclusions? I am going some with this. Okay, so that gives us confidence as a local authority that the school's monitoring and evaluation processes are correct. Now, you will be aware that we're under a funny situation at the moment, and that's action short of strike in primary schools. Okay, and there's a 1 year anniversary of that at the moment, and we have not been able to go into schools in primary, our secondaries are fine, to be able to verify those levels of evidence. Okay? So that means that we were unable to know exactly where the progress of learners is in the majority of our schools. We haven't got that evidence. We're having to trust schools, but we haven't got the verification. Okay, so We don't always know exactly where a school is because of that set of circumstances. I can tell you that the EAS did go in a supportive manner into the school, and they did look at general practice within the school, and they didn't find anything wrong with the healthy eating angle, but they might not have looked at it in that broad fashion. They might have looked at it more based around subject-specific areas. But they did not come back with the concerns that Esther raised.
Okay. Well, that's an honest answer,
Yeah.
and that's what we expect, and I can work with, honestly, and I guess the rest of the committee can work with that. It's quite alarming to know that we can't keep a close eye or follow that procedure of interaction because of the I don't know what you want to call it, because of the stance taken by the trade unions, that then is compromising us a bit. I feel that we are compromised. I feel that you are compromised, and I feel that the children of Newport are compromised. That doesn't mean to say that the standard of education has gone down in any shape or form. It means that we cannot verify what we hope to know and what we do know. So hope to know is one thing, what we do know is another. And I would just, I mean, I know that the cabinet member will be keeping a close eye on this as always. And I can assure you that as a committee, I guess we will as well as monitoring the progress of Wentley School, the school that we all hold quite dearly to our hearts, and we'll see the progress as we go on.
Chair, one thing I can tell you to give you some level of reassurance is because Wentley is in a review category now, and the local authority was have to demonstrate to Estin that they had confidence that the school can come out of that category or not. And we have to make sure the integrity of the local authority is kept intact, that I can go in and monitor now.
Yes.
Because of that Estin review status, or if there was ever a school that was causing concern and fell into a school's causing concern category, I can then intervene legally, despite trade union stance at the moment. So that's helpful.
And again, it's reassuring to hear that we have things in place.
Yes.
It's reassuring to hear we have things in place if required. Thank you. We're not going to dwell any further. Page 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. Yeah,
I think just ask a general question.
Yes.
And first, can I say that the report is really very pleasing to read, and I want to congratulate the cabinet member and the officers for education in supporting schools, and what I've read here is extremely pleasing, and thank you for your hard work. Can I ask, the inspection reports that actually provide evidence of what's going on are in a new form at the moment, and that's good in the sense that I think the inspection reports are more easily understandable by the audience, the parents, even the children. How easy is it now to compare outcomes of similar local authorities and nationally?
It's very difficult. And that's why you've got to be very cautious when, you know, we've cited figures around innovative and interesting practice, because it's not about stating that that school is any stronger or better than another school. It's just that their practice on through that inspection period was identified as innovative and interesting. So it's very difficult to compare. The most important features and standards, the learning element is a very difficult one, because we don't have that data element we've had previously with end of key stage outcomes and key stage 4 and key stage 5 outcomes. However, what I think is important is that it's around leadership, because we know that the most important factor in our high performing schools, and this is something we have very well, no, we've worked really hard as a local authority in Newport over many years to secure a really strong leadership in our schools. And I think when you read about leadership and you read about the quality of the school's ability to know itself well, how it knows itself well, and then what it do with that information to improve outcomes for learners, that is what you can use as your comparator.
There's another part of this as well, which I think is important, is we talk about no schools and special measures, but there was a time where St Julian's and Newport High, for example, were in special measures. And you can be often stuck with that label for some time. But there was a good 18 months that we had no concerns about St Julian's and Newport High, and their trajectory was only up. And if it had been our decision, of course it's not our decision because that's up to Her Majesty's Inspectorate, those schools would not have remained in those categories. The difficulty is that when a school goes into a special measures category, the inspection team can often look at recommendations in isolation. So they often do two take-ins. They look at recommendation 1, next visit recommendation 2, and they need to look at recommendation 1 again. This has been some time. So the system can be somewhat frustrating, and as I said, the local authority had no concerns. And actually what you will have noted is that as Chief Education Officer, I removed all warning notices, removed additional governors, removed any type of use of statutory powers, because I had absolute confidence in those schools flourishing. So labelling can be quite difficult at times.
Can I also add, as you're aware, I'm also Chair of Governors of St Julian's School, and I became Chair of Governors whilst it was special measures. I think that experience actually gives me that insight and makes me actually a better cabinet member because I know exactly what that process looks like. I know the in-depth work that Estin takes in relation to the questions they ask, the focus, and I actually appreciate that actually what creates change, what actually enables that change and improvement of school leadership. It absolutely is. And it's leadership from your head teacher, senior leadership, as well as your governing body. And those things combined actually makes those changes. And that support to your middle leaders and your teachers as well. I've been through that process. I also know that to actually get out of Estin special measures, you actually find yourself probably in a better place than most schools who are considered good or outstanding using the old language, because you've actually got to move beyond that trajectory to actually be deemed by Estin to be in a place where they're going to remove it. So I know, I'm confident, for example, that St Julian's School is an excellent school at this point in time, if it was inspected by Estin again, because it had to go on that massive sort of quite uphill to get onto that sort of level. The other thing I want to say about Estin is that in the last year, we've heard about Ofsted, we've heard that in England, we've had head teachers committing suicide, of that punitive, draconian approach that Ofsted have taken with our schools. Estin have changed their approach with this new approach, and they look at a more supportive approach with our schools. It's about enabling. They do focus on schools who do need additional support. They go in and they work with our head teachers to enable them to progress. There's been a massive sea change, and I really welcome that, because that's about enabling improvement. That's actually about supporting our children to actually get the best outcomes for them, rather than head teachers and schools having to focus on specific issues which not necessarily impact on learning. So really in Wales, I think we really are in a fortunate position, and we are leading the way in regards to education and the way progress is being considered. And I think that really needs to be recognised.
Okay, thank you there. I guess sometimes it's good to listen, and I've listened, and it's good to let people say what they have to say, what they feel, and what they have passion about. You know, a very passionate man, Councillor Druitt, and I don't know why I pick him up, but I do. Has he though? Oh yes, Councillor, are you Amy?
Yes, Chair, I thought just as we came to the end of that report, I wanted us, as a scrutiny committee, to congratulate all the schools for achieving, very credible performance according to the Eston report. I'm particularly pleased about the 3 schools that have come out of the special measures, and the others who have, when you look at the comments that we have in the report, it's a great achievement for them. On the scrutiny committee, we ask questions. Sometimes we appear to be critical, but I think on this occasion we have had a happy report this morning to discuss, and it's a pleasure to say so. So yes, we thank our officers, we thank all who have worked hard for that, and we look forward to further consolidation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I ask a sort of amalgam question about progress being made on attendance in schools, on pupils not in education training, support given for well-being of pupils and staff, and mental health of pupils?
In terms of those pupils that are not in education and training, we've got a really strong outcome for year 11 especially. And the reason I'm focused on year 11 is because that's the end of the statutory school age. When we get to 12 and 13, obviously pupils are out in college as well. And we've got good performance figures for year 12 and 13 as well. But if I focus on year 11, gosh, we are something along that, and I will come back to you as a committee on this. We could be 3rd in Wales, or 6th in Wales. It's really high, isn't it?
I think we're about 2nd in that, and we have been over the 2nd.
So there was a time when Newport had neat figures in year 11 that were not comfortable, were very uncomfortable. They weren't doing our learners justice. I would say the last 7 to 8 years, they've been above the Welsh average. We've got high levels of confidence. And what works for us there is the Aspire project in Clisweri, the John Frost, and they support learners with alternative education, so they're engaged. And the PRU was really successful as well. And we're tracking every single learner individually. So we've got a youth and progression and engagement coordinator who sits in our service area and works with youth services as well, and they donor. Yeah. So anybody that's dropped into the system, they need to go and find out from the family where that young person is and what we can offer them in terms of their next steps so they are engaged, because actually there's lots of opportunities there for apprenticeships, college, to go back to school. You can have a different experience of school in sixth form. Sure, do get on. But so there's lots of options, and we do follow on every single individual case. Where you see the neat figures in this very small percentages, because generally there are a small cohort of young people where their mental health has suffered so significantly that they're not engaging with anything. And actually for their own well-being, they might be better left alone and to the care of other professionals. So that's where we see those figures. But generally they're in single figures out of a cohort.
Sarah, I can just say we've been sick. This was the 2021 data, which is we were sick. Sorry, for the 6th year running with performance campaign, ranked 6th position in Wales. Performance is the highest in South East Wales and for similar authorities. So we are above the Welsh average, 6th in Wales, and above all our compared to our regional authorities.
In terms of people well-being, within our education services team, We have a wellbeing coordinator. We work with an Iron Bevan Health Board on a whole school approach to wellbeing. That links to staff wellbeing as well, not just pupil wellbeing. And there is a whole programme which touches families' lives as well as individual pupils, which looks at building your own resilience, 5 ways to wellbeing through physical connectedness and socialising. It's really multidimensional, but it also links into other things. So, for instance, we do work on strategic equalities plans, making sure that further support is in place for schools around all types of discrimination, making sure that people are protected in those ways. Attendance is a really important indicator for wellbeing. Nationally, we're in a difficult place because we're not reporting attendance. If you are a governor, you should know about your attendance levels in your governing bodies. But at the moment, that key performance indicator is not being collected and published on a national basis. Like all local authorities, we are seeing a decline in pupil attendance post-pandemic.
Yes.
You know, you've got to think that before the pandemic, we saw great success in reports attendance. So we saw primary schools, I think, were ranked as 8th position in Wales, and secondaries also in a really high position above our national local authority ranking. We haven't stopped any of those support mechanisms. They're still in place. I think that everybody's job is a lot harder, including parents trying to motivate children to go to school as well. The world has just changed. It's really complicated, but it's not stopping our efforts.
That's a
Yeah, Sarah, when I need to be really. I've been following this thing, particularly in England, where pupil numbers are falling or children just haven't gone back to school for whatever reason. I've also read about parents, in many cases, seeing schooling as optional now, because the schools were closed and they'll have to have time holidays and everything that used to be frowned upon, but isn't now. Is that having much of an impact in Wales or in Newport that you're aware of?
Well, yes, first would be absolutely term time holidays. You know, they are more prevalent than they were.
Yeah.
But what we have done is we've reintroduced the fixed penalty notices, because it is a parent's responsibility to make sure that children are in school. Now, what I would say about those fixed penalty notices is that they are well evidenced before they are implemented. So, for instance, it's not just a case of not knowing and understanding the family and somebody receives that fixed penalty notice. It is looking at what we can do to support that family and what is the sticking point in terms of attendance. So they're not just handed out, because that can be really unhelpful if you don't understand the context of the family. So definitely we do see that the more frequent term time holidays, we see more elective home educated children as well, and we're tracking what we can. Of course, if you're electively home educated, if you're in the school system and you withdraw from school, a parent must write into the local authority to notify us that they are electively home educated, but there will be a cohort of parents as well that we just don't know about, because they would never came into school. And that's they are quite entitled not to tell us who they are. But we do reach out to the elective home educated community, and our attendance officers are working with them and supporting with fund days, so that there's an opportunity. Obviously they've got their own networks, but we're supporting as well and trying to listen to their voices so that we can give them any support that they need. We're also tracking the electively home educated children to notice where they're coming from. Are they dropping it at specific schools? Could there be an underlying issue? So we're analysing that data.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say well done to the preschools coming into special measures, because I know how much work the head and all the teachers are in for it, especially you've got I've been the governor on that. And also since lockdown, it's been really difficult for young people getting back into education. There's so many suffering with the emotional strain of everything, and the ACES classes have rose, and you know, and as you said, with the Aspire and wherever, there are things in place. And I think more parents need to, you know, get in touch with them.
Absolutely. Not every pupil is suited to a normal school.
Exactly. And even more so since lockdown. Yes.
Okay, can I just say as chair of the committee, and it is appropriate to sit here and listen to members and officers and the cabinet member express their passion and their thoughts, that there's more to education than books and pens. And I'm not quite sure how many people outside of this committee, but I certainly would welcome a refresher somehow of the work that goes on outside, the outreach, explaining the officers concerned, who goes out to see them, when do we go, how do we interact with the family, how do we bring them back, how many hours a day, can we come up for half hour? I mean, how do we make those people who find themselves outside of education collaborate with education on their level? I mean, and I guess a lot of members would benefit from a greater understanding of what happens beyond the school gates in this respect as well, what goes on inside the school gates. And I'm not quite sure how we can progress this.
Can I just ask as well about the numbers or the estimated numbers of children not in education but weren't in the school system, and is a change in the law needed to encourage them, or what would you say on that?
It is a parent's right to electively home educate their child. So I couldn't comment on changing the law.
Okay.
I agree, that would be Welsh Government. It's certainly under Kirsty Williams, there was a consideration at the time, but there was a large lobby in regards to not in support of that. I think the key for us as local authority is there's lost children on the learning pictures. For all of us, it's safeguarding.
Yes.
And that is a massive issue.
Yes.
So it would be helpful if there was some support in regards to that they had to register, but there's no legislation to quite do so.
Thank you.
You always welcome as an opportunity, because this is the right moral thing to do. Is if a parent indicates they'd like to electively home educate their child and withdraw from school, is that there's a conversation of the parents understands of what that means, and is there anything else we can do to help and support, because there could be an incident where it is absolutely, it's well thought out and it's really intentional, but there could also be an incident where families are feeling fatigue and frustrated with the system and nobody's listening to them perhaps, and they could be making a rash decision or an error of judgment. And I just want, it was important that they're supported in having that conversation to make sure that it is exactly what they want and what the young person wants as well.
Jan?
Thank you. My question's on homeschooling. Because I know there's quite a lot of parents opting out, as you just said. What monitoring and evaluation do the education do on it?
There's an annual visit, a welfare check on each child for those that are registered. Bearing in mind we've got a cohort of young people that we wouldn't know about because they've never been registered, and we can monitor in a very broad fashion to talk about, to ask inquisitive questions about what their learning is, but there is no national curriculum set out for electively home educated children, so it can be at the discretion of the parent. What we do often is when pupils get to an examination age, electively home educated parents will often find themselves without an examination centre. So we try and make those available to those families. And we often find that young people don't want to go back into a traditional secondary school. So we often set up centres across the city where they feel more comfortable going in for their exams, because it would be difficult if you're entering exam pressure anyway. It's not perhaps a normal environment for you, so we have to consider those things.
Do you find with some of the young people it affects their social education, where they haven't got no social skills and life skills?
I wouldn't like to presume that, and I don't think that we would have, whilst we do welfare checks, they're pretty standard, and we wouldn't have a deep understanding or relationship with that young person because they're home educated.
But then we know that there are networks established by families.
Yes.
And we offer those networking opportunities through workshop sessions. We've run science workshop days, we've run art workshop days. So we're trying really hard to create settings where electively home educated families and young people come together. So, facilitated by the local authority. So that gives us a sense of we're providing an opportunity to network, to provide those connections, although I do know they exist outside of what we're offering.
When you research suggests that when you the electively home educated community and the parents and carers that provide that often can feel judged, and are concerned that as a society we make presumptions about social interaction, etc., and they take such pride in their own elective home education and what they do, and they talk about the fact they make those right social interactions, like Sarah said. So that is one of the things I think that they feel really sensitive about, that we do, any of us might presume when actually that's not true. So we have to be really careful.
Can I also add, in regards to the support we do give our home educated children, it is Welsh Government funded, so they give a grant to us local authority, and that's what's used. So it's very specific funding that we can use. Well, hopefully that'll continue despite the in-year cuts, but so it enables us as local authority to give that support. So it is funded, it is provided for, and it is done in some very innovative, imaginative ways to support that engagement.
Is that only in Wales? It don't happen in England, do it? Because that's where I've got my experience from in England.
I can't answer regards to England, but certainly it does in
And that allows us to actually appoint electively home educated education well service employees who are dedicated to that, and therefore building relationships with those individual families. And we know that strong relationships allow us to find out far more about what those families need and to address those needs.
Absolutely correct. And on that note, we're going to draw this conversation to a close. As you can see, members are thirsty for their continuing educational journeys, and even though we did stretch it a bit, it was an interesting diversion for us, and I also take on board, and we see some progress on the comments we've all heard around the table today. I take the capacity, congratulations down the line.
Slow ahead.
Please. Thank you very much for your letter to
When they do it on the school. One of the best friends.
Actually,
you've got a window behind the pants.
Just around something like the social skills and life skills.
Okay, we're going to go back to the agenda now, which is the conclusion of the committee report.
So I've only got 2 points, no comments, which would be just to pass on our thanks to officers in the schools for their hard work.
Hello.
Sorry.
Okay, Stan's talking.
Sorry. The only real bit of information we've asked for is maybe an information report on what work's done to bring outreach to pupils and parents who are struggling to get back into education, about attendance issues and about needs. I think if that comes as an information report, I think that's all we're asking for really, is nothing just scrutinising it.
No,
But if you talk about that information.
we want that, yeah. I guess that we want that greater information. What I was trying to drive at is we need it. even though I understand bits of it, I don't fully understand all of it. This is why I want to be updated again. I don't know what level, and I'm not asking people to say, but maybe it might be a useful engagement for all the committee, not just have it written, but to have, so we can interact with questions. So, you know, when we got a meal, we tend to interact better and learn more on face to face than we do reading from a report. And maybe we could schedule that as a I don't know, even a separate meeting if committee's favourable for that, and we can see where it goes from there. Maybe it's something for other members may want in the future.
Okay.
So
the only 2 points I've noted really is just passing on our thanks in that report. But if the committee feels that there needs anything that needs to be added to comments or recommendations, happy to note.
I guess we're looking at Pwyllgor and we want to keep an eye on that, make sure they make the recommended progress.
So highlighting the importance of progressing the grant. Right.
I guess, you know, you've had the compliments from everybody around the table. So that's what the notice. Is there anything else anybody wishes to add? Okay, fine, thank you. Yes.
What were you saying, Chair? Sorry. Yeah, what were you saying about the Welsh, as it was a running theme through many inspection? Wasn't sure what actually was undertaken there.
I can certainly add a comment to say the highlighting the importance of continuing the
moving forward, trust.
Yeah, they thrive in support of the Welsh second language.
Could we maybe just have an overview of kind of, you know, what is being done to progress the Welsh element of things? I know they gave us a little rundown just now, but it might just be useful to have a little summary in writing.
Yes.
Yes, I think that would be good, yeah.
So an overview of what's done in schools to help progress Welsh second language, and we want to highlight the importance of it going forward. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it will be good, you know, as the next batch, when we look at a similar report, say in a year time or whenever, that doesn't appear such a running theme throughout as it seemed to have in this particular case.
Okay.
There's all noted, councillors.
Okay. Still
beyond the last item. Not much of it. Not much to update you on, to be honest, committee. There's no changes to the forward work programme as of yet. But if we're looking to add an information report session, potentially we could add it onto one of the later meetings that's smaller, or we could have, like you say, an additional session, but we'll look at that. Going forward. The action sheet, we've had a good chunk of our responses back from officers. We're still waiting on a handful, but they have been chased last week. So fingers crossed we'll have some more information. And then we have one information report in the time between our meetings, which was about child exploitation. Didn't have any questions about that, so hopefully you answered anything you wanted to know. And obviously you would comment, Chair, to officers just to thank them for the report.
Yes.
And that's me done.
Okay, and on that note, I think we're all done. So can I all thank you for your attendance and interactions here.